Hello guys and welcome back to CS with Mr. G. Today we are looking at cloud storage and how data is stored in what we call a cloud. And in this lesson we need to understand what is meant by the term cloud storage, explaining the advantages and disadvantages of storing data on the cloud in comparison to storing it locally, which means on secondary storage devices. So we'll compare storing data on the cloud to storing it on a device such as a hard drive, an SSD drive, or even offline storage such as a CD, DVD, or flash drive, looking at the pros and cons of using cloud storage. So the term cloud storage, as you probably know, refers to services provided by the internet in order to store data. So the internet is the absolute key to cloud storage, and you will often see network diagrams with cloud symbols being used for most cloud storage services. So when we think about the cloud, we think of it being in the sky above our heads. The reason being is that we can access data from the cloud pretty much anywhere in the world as long as we have internet. So that's why we kind of use the word cloud for that. Now there are two different terms when it comes to the cloud, and these are cloud storage and cloud computing. So we will compare the differences between them, as cloud storage simply refers to the storing of data and files. Okay, so cloud storage is just about storing data. Now where these data and files are stored is on what we call a server. And this server is just a bunch of hard drives that are somewhere in the world, but that we can access them via the internet. Now, as you've probably seen on your devices at home or in school, all of these services here are all examples of cloud storage. We've got OneDrive, Google Drive, Dropbox, iCloud, and there are lots more. But the services that they offer are all very similar in that they store the data on their own servers. When they do that, we are able to sync our files so that all of our devices can access the same files. We can share documents with other people, and we can access these files anywhere in the world as long as we have internet connection. So these 3 points all apply to the different companies. They just all do it in a different way using their own menus or systems. But cloud storage covers these principles, and like I said, you've probably used it at some point in your lives. So with cloud storage, there are lots of free services. Most companies will give you a certain amount for free. When that amount is filled, you do tend to have to buy more, but typically you only pay for what you use. So we can consider that as an advantage. Obviously, there are packages where you get lots of data, but these do tend to come at a price. Another huge advantage is that data and files are available from anywhere, literally anywhere in the world. As long as you have internet connection, data and files are available. Automatic backup is also a key feature. Like I said, if you take a picture on your iPhone, it's automatically synced into your iCloud, and it's pretty much safe in the cloud. Before cloud storage, we had to manually copy our files onto a secondary storage device, and it was a time-consuming process and required lots of different devices. Nowadays, it's automatically backed up, it's seamless, and again, it's a huge advantage to cloud storage. Collaborative working and sharing files with others is also a huge advantage. You don't have to send huge files across emails or on flash drives. A link can literally be sent to a friend, to a colleague, and they're able to access these files, again, as long as they have the internet. The term collaborative working just means multiple people working on the same document. Again, if you're doing group work in school and 3 or 4 of you are all working on the same document, this can be done by cloud storage, and again is a key feature. However, it's not perfect. You do need the internet, okay, and typically you need a reliable connection as well. So if you haven't got internet, then you're unable to access your data. You can question the security of the files. You're not in control of the files. They are stored somewhere else in the world that you are not in control of. Typically, we can rely on huge companies such as Apple or Google to keep our data safe, but there is that question mark over the security, and you can look at it from that approach. Software also has to be kept up to date constantly. If you're not using the most recent version, it could tamper with your access to files, so you do have to keep on top of your software updates. And the speed of accessing your data will completely rely on your internet connection. So you do have to be mindful. If you're totally reliant on accessing your data, you're going to need a good, stable internet connection. Just remember that, okay? So we do consider that as a disadvantage, as your internet connection will affect the performance when it comes to accessing the cloud. Now, when it comes to cloud computing, this is what we call having the ability to access applications using the internet. So now we're not talking about storing data, we're talking about accessing applications or programs. So if you haven't seen it already, you can typically go to a web browser now and access applications through your web browser without having to install or maintain software yourself. Things like Google Workspace with Google Docs and Google Slides. You've got Microsoft Office 365 where you can access Word and Excel all through your web browser. Is what we call cloud computing. It's also called software as a service, which is a term you might see. And again, it's the ability to access programs through a web browser. And we will go through some examples of cloud computing, looking at the pros and cons of it as well. So this example here, we've got Microsoft Excel. One is being accessed through a web browser, which is cloud computing, and the other is Excel installed on the computer's hard drive and accessing a spreadsheet on that hard drive also. As you can see, the one that's accessed through the web browser says here, save to OneDrive. Now what happens is every time you make a change to this spreadsheet, it will automatically save and update the file. However, if you were in the desktop version, every time you made a change or typed in something to your spreadsheet, you would have to manually click save in order to save the file. So although that doesn't seem like a huge point I'm making, it is a huge advantage when it comes to data loss and keeping your data secure. If you've ever used these applications online, it's a very nice feature knowing your data is saved as soon as you've typed in a single letter. In the rare case of your computer switching off or losing power, it's nice to know your data is constantly being saved and backed up to a safe place. Also, as you can see, the apps are very similar. You have very similar features across both versions. So web apps now in cloud computing are able to perform the same processes as their desktop equivalents. So this well could be the way that we start to work as we move forward for most applications. If you've ever used a website called Canva, or even Photoshop has an online version now, and you can perform tasks and create work to a similar standard to the apps that are installed on our devices. If you look at the Google Suite, for example, accessing a file through your Google Drive, which is the cloud storage, and opening it within Google Docs or Google Slides, we are now combining cloud storage with cloud computing, and we are able to work completely using the cloud. So the need to install software is becoming less and less, again, as we move forward in time. So just to go over some key terms and advantages of cloud computing, if we talk about this term scalability, I've put an example here about having a concert in your own garden. Depending on how many people come to this concert, your garden would grow with the amount of people. So that means that websites and apps can handle lots of users without it slowing down. Also, you are able to use more storage if you need to, or more features of an app, again, depending on your needs. So that's what the term scalable means, that it can change and move with our requirements and whatever we need to do. We can also look at the cost of cloud computing. There are generally free versions of most cloud computing services, and the easiest comparison I can make is that if you use cloud computing to game, rather than buying a €1,000 console or desktop PC, you can pay a lot less than that to play the games using a cloud platform and still run games through a web browser. Also, apps that are on the cloud will be at their newest version constantly as the app is installed on the server side. So for example, if you access Google Slides, you are running Google Slides from Google Server. You're not installing it yourself, which means it will be the latest version with all of the latest features and all of the latest security updates. So you don't have to worry about maintaining the software, about installing updates, or fixing any problems that you might come across. Working together covers the same thing as collaborative working under cloud storage. So again, cloud apps allow you to work within groups wherever you are in the world, as long as you have a good internet connection. And something else I touched on was that safety aspect to it. Cloud applications are automatically saving as you work away, which again is a huge advantage to our day-to-day working. However, something we do have to remember is that cloud computing and storage both rely on the internet, and if you don't have a good internet connection, you are unable to access your data and certainly access applications through the cloud. So to finish off, give the video a pause, try and answer these questions yourself, at least have a think about it. But firstly, let's have a look at what is meant by cloud storage, which is storing data on a server accessed using the internet. Some of those examples include Google Drive, OneDrive, Dropbox, iCloud. There are many different examples, but a simple definition is storing data files on a server in which we access using the internet. How is it different from local storage? Well, local storage is storage we have ourselves, so HDDs or SSDs that you own and that you have physical access to. I'll just make a point of physical access because you physically own the device. You're physically plugging it into your computer, or it's actually part of the device that you own. Cloud storage, we don't own. We simply use a third party. We use Google, we use Apple, and we access it again using the internet. Two advantages and two disadvantages. Well, if we start with the advantages, we can access files from anywhere. We can also talk about data safety, so secure data. You could also mention about collaborative working as well. The main disadvantage is that you need the internet. Remember, I put need in capital letters, so you need the internet in order to work. A poor internet connection, poor connection will affect performance. Apologies for my handwriting, but feel free to go back to the video. All the information is in there. But that concludes our lesson on cloud storage. So as always guys, I hope you've enjoyed the video. Unit 3 is almost to an end. There is one more lesson which is all about network hardware, so I will hopefully see you in that video. Okay guys, thank you for watching. See you next time.